To identifying the elephant in the room, critical communication strategies in the face of sexism. I'm Amy Summers. I'm the series director. I'm also president and founder of Pitch Publicity and INICIVOX, who's putting on this program series for you. And I'm so delighted to be joined today by Ryan Honeyman. He is my co-host. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy.
And Ryan and I just recently met again. We are both part of the wonderful network of Naturally Network. Ryan is involved with Naturally Bay Area. So he's coming into us from the West Coast today. And I'm involved with Naturally New York. And Katrina, who is the executive director of Naturally Network, who you met in the After the Elephant Series 1, was so kind to connect us. And I'm really glad that I got to meet Ryan, because he's like one of those people that you meet where you're like, oh my gosh, I just found a treasure. So Ryan, he wrote the B Corp handbook. He's helped several companies become B Corp, including Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's. Does anybody know Ben & Jerry's? Does anybody eat Ben & Jerry's? Put it in the chat, your favorite Ben & Jerry's ice cream. These are B Corp companies. They're major. And Ryan, you know, there might be some people that are in the industry that know exactly what we're talking about right now. There might be other people that are like, what are they talking about? Maybe you see the B Corp seal on, you know, a website or a product. And I just wanted you to tell everybody a little bit like about what is B Corp? Why do we need a handbook? Why did you write that? And how can B Corp help with sexism?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm really excited to be here, Amy. Yeah, I think so. B Corps, for folks who don't know, are a global movement of companies using the power of business as a force for good. So, you know, Amy mentioned Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's. Other ones include Allbirds, you know, King Arthur Flour, Method, Dr. Bronner's. And so it's a lot of brands that really have a high standard of social and environmental values. And so the reason B Corps were started is because, you know, the marketing departments of many companies can talk about how good a company is, but it's really up to, you know, one of the differentiators is third-party credible standards that can certify whether a company is meeting high standards of social and environmental performance. So the B Corp movement was started in 2008 with an initial, I think it was like maybe 80 companies. Now there's around 6,000 in about 80 different countries, 135 industries, with this one unifying goal to use the power of business as a force for good. And so I'm particularly excited about B Corps and wrote the handbook because as I was consulting with companies and telling them, hey, have you heard about B Corps? You know, are you interested? And many entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs and, you know, execs would say, I don't really know what it is. And there wasn't a great amount of resources out there for companies to find. And so I wrote the B Corp handbook in 2014 as a way to say, here's everything you need to know about the what, why, and how to become a certified B Corp. And sort of dovetailing with this sexism conversation in 2019, I co-authored the second edition of the B Corp handbook, but I brought in Dr. Tiffany Jana, who's an expert on DEI and sexism, racial justice, et cetera. And we really wanted the book to reflect that maybe in 2014, we could get away with talking about just broad use social and environmental responsibility for good. But by 2019, it was clear like we needed to address racism, sexism, all the isms directly, or we were going to be doing a disservice to the sort of broader social entrepreneurship community. And so B Corp, the second edition and what I've been working on the last 4 or 5 years since then is really, yes, let's get you certified to meet high standards of social and environmental performance, but also, you know, let's talk about pay equity, you know, let's talk about representation on your board. Let's talk about your ownership structure. Like, how are women and people of color, are they just employees or do they co-own the company? And so, you know, really looking at like layers of addressing, you know, historical sort of oppression has been built into the B Corp movement, and it's really been growing.
This is such a great resource, I think, for so many people. And we put in the chat a lot of resources on what Ryan has talked about. I think we could do the whole session on you, but we're not. Ryan is Co-hosting with me now, we're just kind of warming up the elephant room here, getting ready for our session 4, which we're going to cover legal, finance, marketing, and retail. I know it's a lot, but I think it's timely that it just so happened that we're here in session 4 with this group, because so many things have been coming up in all of our previous sessions that I think this group is going to be able to address. I don't know if you guys know this, but just this past Tuesday, it was Sexual Assault Awareness Day. Also very timely that we're having this conversation right now. And, you know, Ryan, one of the things that has been coming up throughout the series that has been suggested as a solution for our natural products industry, and largely this suggestion keeps coming from men, by the way, is that we create some kind of list of all the offenders and put it out there. And, you know, I think while it sounds like a really, you know, obvious idea or like something you would do, I'm excited that our panel today is going to kind of dive into that a little bit more and talk about, you know, what could be the possible things that could backfire with something like that. And I know myself being, you know, a victim of domestic violence, there's a lot of safety issues involved with women when you put out a list like that. And we just have to remember that, you know, if people if there are perpetrators out there that are really doing offensive things, they're a different kind of person. So you put their name on a list and they're not going to do what you and I would do, which is maybe go, okay, we won't do that anymore. Sometimes they get more upset. Do you find this when you're talking to companies, like when are you dealing with these types of things?
Yeah, you know, I think it's really important for, you know, it's important for men as well to go out and like collect the other men and be like, come on, guys, let's talk to each other. Like so much of the burden for this falls on women and other folks of color. And so for me, it's really important that like where the guys, you know, the guys are starting to show up a little more, they're still largely not there. So if you're a male listening to this, come on down. Like there's a lot of work for us to do. But I think, you know, one thing that has been effective, at least for me, is, you know, in reaching out to other men and being like, hey, we need to do this work too, is to help men understand that we're not doing this for women as if like, oh, I'm not affected by this and this is like for women and so I'm like doing a charitable thing. It's like, this is actually a better way for us. This is actually like a more joyful and like loving society that like we can be more fully ourselves. And so I'm really hoping that men, you know, listening to this and other men who want to get involved can understand that like, this is actually what's possible is actually a more joyful situation. Like, this is not just like, oh no, how do I give up things? And like, you know, I'm only doing this to support women. It's like, what's in this for you and your family? So.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of business applications too. If you go to our resource tab, if you're in the webinar right now, we've done a lot of homework to prepare for this seminar series, and I've tried to put a bunch of different movies and TV series and documentaries and books and articles for you to take a look at. And in the article link, I added one that Miriam gave me from last session in the ACLU that was talking about, you know, defamation that can happen if men's names are put on a list. I know Claudia Lewis with us today from Venable. We're going to get into kind of the legal aspects of that today. So certainly go look at that. But there's other resources too, like Ryan says. I mean, this is good for everybody. I'm reading this book called The XX Brain, which I would highly recommend. I think people in this industry would be super interested in it. But the scientist who wrote it, who's female, goes into all of this, you know, interesting information about how, you know, even when we talk about women's health, brain health is not in the category of women's health. Women's health is what is ever, or just what's under our bikini. That's what we consider women's health. But there's so many other things that are women's health that we're not doing studies on women. There's not a lot of studies on women in Alzheimer's research. Mainly it's done on men, and get this, even male mice. They don't want to do the research on female mice because their hormones get in the way. And turns out that hormones have a lot to do with brain health. So it's something that, you know, I think that there's applications of this. When we say sexism, we're not just talking about, you know, someone grabbing your butt or, you know, all of these things too. There's so many other aspects that we're just kind of digging into and just scratching the surface in this series. Ryan, I know you're going to be able to talk on After the Elephant when we wrap up here. You're going to sit with us for the panel, and then you're going to go join for After the Elephant to discuss what we've discussed here. But just, we're getting real close to our time. We're going to bring our panelists on, and we got about 5 minutes to go before we bring them on. But is there anything like super interesting that you have come across in working with some of the companies that you have that has been along the lines of that sexism, where you helped course correct and maybe it turned out for the better for that company?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I'm seeing, which is perhaps way different than most companies think about it, is often there's, in companies, there's, deservedly women's resource groups or folks of color resource groups, LGBTQIA resource groups. There's actually a growing trend of like men's resource groups or even white men's resources groups, because we have so much to work on that we need to like, often it feels like, oh, those are separate things. Those are things that like, I don't need to work on, but it's actually like, we're the ones who hold a lot of power, and we're also the ones who resist, working on these things the most. And so if there's a way to create male belonging in some of these groups that I've been helping with companies, it's really powerful. It feels like men can sort of like, okay, performance, worrying about like, whatever my father taught me about like how I should be a man. There's so many of these ingrained things that we need to work on just as a community of men that will just inherently benefit women, but also will benefit us as well. And so,
yeah, and I like what you said. I think that's what we've tried to do as a series. We try to make it very inclusive to everybody. We've been very action oriented so far, trying to get those takeaways from each panel. In fact, I'm going to throw in the chat right now some of our session 3 takeaways that we had from last week on just everything from just day-to-day stuff that you can do to maybe even some bigger ideas. And we've got this session today. We've got one more session next week, which is going to be our ingredient, supplement, and pet session. And then our session 6, I have a couple open panel seats for you. So one's taken, one might almost be taken. So I might only have one left. I'm just waiting to hear back from that person. But I'm going to throw in the chat about our session 6. We are looking for ideas. So if you have an idea, if there is something that you think that we could be doing in our industry that would improve things, you don't have to have it all fleshed out yet. You don't have to have a business plan or anything like that. We just want to hear your ideas. And I think that this would be a great environment for us to share with each other. And who knows, you might even pick up someone that wants to help you fund your idea or help you with certain resources for your idea. So I'm just throwing in the chat more about that. And we are about 2 minutes away to getting started here. So before we do, I just want to let everyone know that it is April now. And now that it's April, the next conference coming up is Supply Side East. And we actually have a workshop at Supply Side East. It's going to be on April 19th. It is themed from this whole series. We're going to put some of the things that we learned from Elephant in the Room series into action and learn a better way to network with each other. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We have several of the panelists that have joined us in the series who will be part of that. Heather Wainer, who you're going to meet in a minute. Danielle Masterson, Crystal Weber's joining us, Karen Howard, Kantha Shelke, and many others. So if you're going to be at Supply Side East, please join us. If you haven't decided yet or you're on the fence, there's a discount code in chat I just sent you that you can use to get some money off your registration. And now that we're about a minute away, we're going to go ahead and get things started here. So if you're just joining us now, I'd like to welcome everybody to Identifying the Elephant in the Room, Critical Communication Strategies in the Face of Sexism, where we are examining today the legal, marketing, financial, and retail sectors of the natural products industry. And I'm here with Ryan Honeyman. He is from Lift Economy. And as I mentioned, if you were with us at the top, if you weren't, he is the one who wrote the B Corp handbook, and he has a wealth of information. So go back up in the chat and take a look at that. You can also see Ryan after this panel for his post-analysis discussion, feedback, and response to what we're about to hear. So welcome everybody. to identifying the elephant in the room, critical communication strategies in the face of sexism. And I am really pleased to introduce our panel. Ryan's going to help me out here with the introduction. And first, I would like to welcome Claudia A. Lewis. She is a partner and co-chair of the FDA Group at Venable LLP in Washington, D.C., and counsels on matters involving FDA regulation, labeling, marketing of foods, OTC drugs, medical devices, and other products. She has prepared and presented constitutional and administrative law cases before federal agencies, including the FDA, FTC, and DOJ. Claudia frequently speaks on legal and regulatory state of our sector. She received her JD from American University, Washington College of Law, is admitted to the Connecticut Bar, and practices before federal agencies. Welcome, Claudia.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Debra Short. She is Executive Director of SENPA, a nonprofit trade association for retailers, manufacturers, distributors, brokers, educators, practitioners, and service providers dedicated to protecting and advancing the natural products industry. With nearly 50 years experience in natural products, starting out in the retail sector at her family's business, Debra has served as presidential and executive positions for Natural Nutrition Foods Association, Southwest Region, and Natural Products Association. And in 2011, she was awarded the NPA Industry Champion Award. Welcome, Debra.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate being here.
Great. And so I am up to introduce David Spungen. So David is a partner and wealth advisor at CI RegentAtlantic Private Wealth, and has developed an expertise in the food and beverage industry by working with restaurateurs, CPG, and food tech entrepreneurs as well. He also founded Break the Mold, a network community for women in the food and beverage industry. David currently serves on the advisory boards of Blanket, Simply Good Jars, and Snuck, and is a mentor in Beyond Skew, a CPG accelerator, and a founding partner and board member at Naturally New York. David, welcome.
Thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here. Thanks for including me.
And Suzanne Shelton is up next. Suzanne is a founder of the Shelton Group, a public relations and marketing firm working exclusively in the natural products industry since 1990. She is the AHPA Communications Committee Chair and PR Co-Chair with Women in Nutraceuticals, an organization advocating for gender parity. Honors she has received for contributions to the industry include NBJ for efforts on behalf of industry, AHPA Herbal Hero, 2 H's there, and Nutra Ingredients Nutra Champion Awards. Suzanne came to the natural products industry after her first career in the music business. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
And then finally, our moderator today, Heather Wainer. She is owner, publisher, and vice president of media at WholeFoods Magazine, a family-owned, women-led publishing and full-service natural products media company. Heather grew up in the natural products industry, watching her father publish WholeFoods Magazine. After college, Heather joined the WholeFoods Magazine team and in time took over running the company. She has been instrumental in the growth of WholeFoods Magazine, as well as the newly relaunched WholeFoodsMagazine.com, the Whole Foods Sourcebook Directory, In the Know e-newsletters, and the Natural View podcasts. In a joint venture with Industry Transparency Center, Heather helps lead the development and execution of the Naturally Informed virtual conference series, now in its 3rd year. And she is also on the board of What's Up with Sups. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here.
And thank you all. And Ryan and I are going to let you guys go at it and have a great panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, hi all. I'm excited to get this started. I don't know if you all have been able to experience the others or not, but the one thing I just said in our rehearsal before is that it's brought up a lot of memories that I've kind of blocked. So I hope that all you are really getting in touch with your feelings with all this that we are doing. I hope today will be another one. I am going to start off today, and Debra's going to be up first. So Debra, you ready?
Yeah.
We're going to dive in.
I think so.
According to surveys, the majority of women are still handling sexual harassment at work in the same way they did in the 1970s. What can be done at the leadership level to support women who are still sucking it up and dealing with sexual harassment at work?
Well, of course, I was graduating high school, but our stores were open in the 70s, so we've had a lot of industry. I've had a lot of industry experience. When my mother opened the store, she's a strong person, and most of the women in the industry, I believe, that are health food store owners are strong women. But my mother, I have a lot of respect for her, and she said that there's a lot of strong-willed people that are in this industry. And she always told me, she said, "Well, this is challenging. This industry is built on how we project ourselves out to people." She said that a woman must be self-disciplined, because we have people coming into the store all the time trying to understand what's going on in our industry, to understand all the new ingredients and the new companies and the different types of news media that comes and addresses everything. So what she said that, and I keep going back to her because I think that she balances things out, that we're strong. And when I teach my daughter the same, we have to be strong. We have to be available to be able to disseminate information to our customers. But I think as far as the whole picture of everything, it's whether we take a responsibility for our actions, whether we're the aggressor, which has been happening. I know there's a lot, and I've listened to all the series. There's a lot that we talked about on the men's side, but I think there's also women out there that are aggressive as well. And I think that whether we do that or we're the victim, we still need to be aware, and we need to show respect. That was one of my biggest words and challenges is the respect and not be subjective to inappropriate behavior.
Absolutely. Thanks, Deborah. I couldn't agree more. Your mom sounds wonderful.
Yeah, she is good.
And next up, let's David and Claudia. David, I'm gonna throw this to you first. Who is better at raising capital for investors, men or women? What are men doing that women aren't doing that makes them better at raising funds?
It's a great question, and I haven't seen data on who's actually more successful. I've just had more anecdotal experience. I work with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs who are pitching. I've worked on a number of pitch panels. For example, the James Beard Foundation does great programming for women founders in the hospitality space that I've had the opportunity to be a judge or an advisor for pitches. So, first of all, I'd say pitching, if you've never done it before, and a lot of founders, it's the first time they've done it, is a hard thing. And whether you're a man or a woman, I think it's really important that people get an opportunity to practice it and practice with people who can give them feedback, because a lot of times founders will go out and pitch and they'll either get a yes or a no, but if they get a no, nobody tells them why. And so I always encourage founders to find people who are willing to give feedback and are well informed, so that they can really work on their pitch and improve it. But one of the things that I've seen a lot with women pitching is that they're a little embarrassed to ask for the money. And there was one particular session that I was part of where I'd say half the women, everyone had to give a pitch. It was at the end of a week-long program working on their pitch. It was very structured. There was an ask at the end. And I'd say about half the women giggled before they got to the ask. And I know that was, they obviously didn't think it was funny, didn't think it was silly. It was just, discomfort. But I think it's really important to project, when you're pitching an early stage company, investors are going to be looking at you and saying, is this a person that I believe can get this done? This is a hard thing to do. Do they have the moxie? Do they have the vision? Do they have the commitment? Do they have the leadership skills? And, if you're that founder, you have all those things, you have to project that. And so, I think there's definitely some tendencies. I have a friend who's a founder who said to me as she was working on a pitch, you know, I feel really bad because I could, you know, potentially lose the money that they're investing. And I said, you know, they know that. They understand this is risky, this is early stage. You've got to tell the story and you know, get them excited about what you're doing and getting on board. But you really have to kind of lean into your vision and your confidence. And I think women struggle a little bit more with that. So I'd say in general, I mean, it goes the other way too, right? There are men who I've seen pitch who are great at pitching and really bad at execution, and companies went up in smoke. So I think there's a balance. I think you have to learn how to project that confidence and that comfort in asking. But I also think you have to be authentic and you have to be real. And there's actually, there's a founder, a successful founder named Crystal Mobiani, who was founder of Bento Box. And there's an interview, and I can see if I can find it and put it in the chat, where she got advice to pitch more like a guy and failed miserably. And then she kind of found her own footing and her comfort level on how to project that confidence and how to pitch, but have it be authentic and have it reflect, you know, kind of who she was. So I think there's a balance of, you know, having confidence, but not, you know, not being cocky necessarily.
Couldn't agree more. And I totally agree. Asking that why is so important. Claudia, what do you have to add to this?
So one thing I wanted to start on a positive note, I agree completely with what David has to say, but I'm representing more and more women every day that are seeking funds, doing fundraising, starting and heading companies. So that's good to see. I think that and as a woman in a very male-dominated world, I think that women can do anything that men can do, and oftentimes better. So I do think that given the opportunity, we certainly can shine and do it. And I think that my real point on this is that, whereas when my male clients come to me with this, you know, how do I pitch, or who can I pitch to, what have you, they've done the practice, they know who they want to talk to, so they're just doing fine tuning. Women oftentimes are coming to me at ground zero. They don't know who to talk to. They have all the information, but access is not always readily available. So my thing is not so much that women can't do it. It's just that we don't have access to all the information. We may not have the same access to networking. So that's what I'm seeing, but I'm glad that the numbers are going up and up and up. I just was on the call this morning with 2 women who are looking for some cash infusion. And we were talking about how to handle some of the FDA related questions.
Sounds fabulous. As Amy had mentioned in the pre-show, for those of you that were in the pre-show, it also was in the chat, that this past Tuesday was Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I did not realize that. Did you guys? So I wanted to bring this topic up because throughout the series, we have led many recommendations, mainly from men, that there should be a list where the industry can call out perpetrators or sexual assault or sexual harassment. What are the possible consequences for women if such a list is generated? Suzanne, you want to take that?
Well, it's been discussed that there are possible legal repercussions and possible retaliation, because people who behave aggressively in that way, are often not willing to be criticized at all. I think a more effective way of handling that is in the moment. I mean, when someone says something inappropriate to me, I've gotten very good at saying, you don't get to talk to me like that. What makes you think you can talk to me like that? Mm-hmm. And, granted, I've been around a long time. I'm pretty old. I'm, been in the industry since dinosaurs roamed the earth. I've developed a lot of confidence. I have, really great client base. So, I feel like my position is secured. So I don't have to worry about like impact on my career, but I would suggest that being confident and setting boundaries against being diminished or objectified is actually a good career move, demonstrating strength, setting boundaries, and especially as, the younger generations don't put up with that crap. And as more and more young people are in our industry as entrepreneurs and, move up through the ranks, they are going to want to work with people who help set the tone for a more civilized environment. So, I think it's a win-win if you, rather than like squirrel away a name to whisper about later, just in the moment, So, you know, hell no, don't talk to me that way. Sorry, was that okay? That I said hell. We knew
okay.
I was gonna.
It's a reaction I think everyone would have. And I agree with you. Claudia, do you want to add more?
So obviously, I think that safety is first and foremost, that we have to be aware of retaliation and safety. And I think that Amy said at the top of the panel that, people who are sort of predator and feel comfortable doing these types of things are not sort of thinking the same as most of us gathered here today. But from a legal perspective, I would also be just very worried about the ability to bring libel or defamation in legal type actions. And so I do think that we have to be careful about trying to protect ourselves, but also opening ourselves to a legal exposure. So that's my 2 cents. And I definitely agree with Suzanne that if you can do it in the moment, if it feels safe for you to do in the moment, that's a very good approach.
Couldn't agree more. As we know, marketing is near and near to my heart. So I'm going to ask this question now. What is your view? And I'm going to ask Suzanne this question. What is your view of companies that align their brands to the feminist movement? Does this help with messaging of women empowerment, or is it just used to just sell more stuff to women? How can companies avoid capitalizing on women?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think it's similar to greenwashing, where, if you just say something, but you don't back it up with actions, people know. I mean, inauthenticity reeks. People can smell it a mile away. So if you're just putting a pink bow on something, but you don't have any women on the board or in executive levels, your women are paid significantly less than men, you're supporting politicians that are trying to take away women's physical and legal autonomy, that sort of thing. These days, there's no hiding that kind of corporate act. So while I like the idea of supporting, groups through marketing, it has to be backed up. You have to walk your talk.
Absolutely. And I've been guilty of buying stuff, I think, that has been targeted to women just because I feel it should be for me, and they caught and charge more money or stuff like that for it. So it's not right.
Can I say something, Heather?
Sure, absolutely.
I think also because, I work with an association. I think most associations try to have a diverse board where they've got the women and the men together so that we have a little bit more. I know our board does. We're very blessed to have a great blend of very strong women and strong men in our organization. But I think I don't want to bring it back and say, there was a time when it was more of racial equality. Way back in the day, where you had to have a certain number of Hispanics or a certain number of people of color that would have to be balanced out. But nowadays, I just think it's better accepted, whether it's accepted on the fact that they feel they have to do it, or whether they feel that it is better, you get a better representation of industry that way.
Well, and there's also, we've really seen a lot of evidence that more diverse leadership populations have new and different ideas, and companies with more diversity are more successful as companies. So, it makes good business sense as well, and as well as just being, ethically the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Here's a good one that I think we can get some discussion going. Are women underpaid or fairly equal to their male counterparts in their natural products industry? What information is missing for women? What can companies do about this to make it more transparent? David, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure, and maybe I'm going to do this a little bit like a presidential debate, where I'm going to give you the answer, not necessarily answer the question, because I don't have all the data on that. But what I do know is that globally, women get paid 18% less than men for the same work, right? So that gap is still there and pretty significant. And from folks I've talked to in the industry, it's not particularly different in this industry. But what is interesting is that in the last couple of years, and the pandemic really accelerated this, that women are increasingly becoming the breadwinners of their family. They're, running the households as well as supporting the families financially. And they're really getting to a point where they're saying, I'm not doing this. So there's an increase in women, leaving and starting their own businesses and doing side hustles. If you actually look at the labor market data, and you look at the loss of the labor force that's happened since COVID, and the reason, if you really dig down to it, the reason why labor market is so tight is because women left the workforce and they haven't come back. And so, at the end of the day, if that's going to cost the economy literally trillions of dollars, then companies are going to have to respond to that and, basically make it worth the while of, the women who have left the workforce to come back. So at the end of the day, that it's important to have the right kind of conversations and for people to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, if they can't get the people in the workforce that they need, companies are going to have to pay them more. And it's not just pay, there's other aspects that they have to address. But the impact on the economy, if they don't, is huge.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, affordable childcare is huge with that. I mean, during the pandemic, my friends who are younger, who have kids who are still at home, were just beside themselves. Like, how do I do all this? I can't possibly, there's all the childcare is gone now. And, we've always been terrible about providing affordable childcare, quality affordable childcare in this country, compared to a lot of other countries. But it's worse now. And until women can safely leave their children with someone who they trust, they're, why get a job when you're going to freak out about whether your kids are okay?
Suzanne, it's interesting. If you look at, I was referencing some of the labor force data, but the labor market was recovering and that rolled over. And it happened to roll over right at the end of August, beginning of September, which is back to school. So that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But that's women's problem. So,
keeping with this topic for one more, we did get a question from Anonymous. Do you think companies today are being more inclusive with diversity efforts because they actually want to be inclusive, or because they could get canceled for not being inclusive? Anyone want to take that one?
Interesting. Probably both. There's probably some of both. Especially as I mentioned earlier, young people just don't put up with, like anti-trans rhetoric and behavior, or LGBTQ plus, they're not having it, and they're the same thing towards women and the same things towards people of color. You just can't behave that way now and be successful in business, from what I have seen. So I think partly people don't want to get canceled, and partly people need the labor pool. And, it's just, it's not 1950 anymore. It's just not. And it's not going to be. Sorry, it's just not.
Maybe to your point, Suzanne, maybe it's a little bit of fake it till you make it. That, I work in the finance world and more traditional companies and very male dominated companies. And, everyone's put in, significant DEI efforts, and, whether it's sincere or not, at the beginning, you can't always tell, but if it brings about the right result, and as you said, if more diverse companies perform better and you have better ideas and new ideas, then, they'll recognize that along the way. So I agree with you. I think it's some of both.
Yeah. Well, baby steps are better than no steps.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Let's switch gears a little bit and say, what sectors of the natural products industry do you observe sexist behavior and sexual harassment being more pervasive? Why is this? Debra, you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's sad because I've attended so many trade shows, but I think that's pretty much where the greatest the greatest collective kind of you put yourself into those positions. the thing about our industry is we're deep seated in passion. Everybody is passionate about what they do. Everybody likes to be able to embrace each other and to enjoy the time together, because we don't get to see each other all the time. So at these larger events, it just makes it a little bit more of an opportunity for people who just want to be able to be more persuasive about how they want to engage in things. And sometimes, I think even though they gather and I think this passion is a little bit more misunderstood. I think that what we do in industry, because I know whenever I go, I always say I save all my hugs for Soho Expo whenever we go there. Sorry for the plug, but it's because there's people that I don't get to see all the time, and there's people that I don't get to embrace and to have good, strong conversation with and networking with. But then on the backside of that, it very well could be that some people take that to the next level, or they feel a little bit more uncomfortable. I know in one of our panel discussions that they were talking about being able to take like a selfie picture. Do you guys remember that? And they were a little offended by that, and maybe it's because of my age, because I think you and I both named some of the animals, Suzanne, back in the day in our but I think that's where you correct yourself and you find yourself in a level that you don't have to put yourself in those kind of situations, and you respect the person as a person instead of having to feel like they're attacking you. You do know, and when you do, you put that shield around you. It's like when you get on the airplane, I put on earphones because sometimes I don't want people talking to me. So if you're out and about and someone is being aggressive or a little bit more friendly with you, I think that you can step back and you can say, okay, I'm done. You don't have to, or you can just casually say that. I think it's probably an easier way to do that. But the sad part about it is I think it's the larger group gathering. I think that's pretty much where you're going to see more of that, because sales reps at the store and things like that, there are more women who are in the mom and pop shops. They're women dominant. But you engage with your sales reps that come in that represent the companies, and they become your friends. And most of the time there's no issue or any kind of feeling that there's going to be any kind of sexual harassment going on. But because you're in your own element, your own territory, your own store. But at these some of our gatherings and things like that, sometimes alcohol plays into it. And so when you get that way, everybody's friendly when you have a couple of drinks. And so being able to just kind of go, okay, I'm just going to step back and put my shield up and just, move away. But so that's where I'm thinking it's probably the most active, we'll say, at trade show events.
I agree. But thank you. I feel very blessed to be one of those people that gets a hug from you at Soho. And I'm a hugger too. But I have one thing I've done is, someone, because hugging is very big in our industry. And I have said, are you okay with it? Or things like that. And I think COVID also brought that along. But, someone who's just met me has sometimes hugged me. It's just, and when I hire people, I'd say sometimes we hug before we shake.
Yeah.
But it is, we are a warm and friendly industry, and we're very blessed to be here.
Yeah, we started out being that way. Hopefully we're going to continue on doing that without having to worry about anything. But
you do have, but it is polite to ask if there's someone that is uncomfortable. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. You have to get everyone's wishes. So we often hear we take these concerns very seriously from companies in response to sexual harassment claims. Is this an overused phrase, sending the right women's message to women? What should companies be saying? Claudia, you want to take that first?
Yes, I do think that we all get in ruts, and I do think that most companies are taking the complaint seriously. But I think that the overall message that we're hearing today is that there needs to just be more dialogue, more sensitivity overall. And I think that some of these issues can be resolved. I think that training is important in terms of making sure that people's complaints and people feel heard feel like they're being taken seriously. I think creating forums or safe spaces for discussion about harassment, what does it look like? And not just some dictionary definition, but in terms of all its various forms. And so I think we've touched on this a little bit today, is that we're all in different age groups. And so harassment to me is different from some of the young associates that are coming on onboarding on the firm now. So, and I think that we've all talked about how we've sort of blocked harassment that happened to us. And now that we're talking about it more, like, hey, you know what, that did feel uncomfortable, but I didn't have a term for it. Or I'm okay with this, but this is why my, daughter who's 20 years old is not okay with that. And so I think that there's many, having a discussion and training and updating it, keeping it updating is sort of what I consider to be evergreen is important to make sure that that companies are taking it seriously and people feel safe in their environments, in their work environments, which they're entitled to.
Suzanne, do you want to elaborate as well?
Yeah, I think in some ways we take these complaints very seriously, as the new thoughts and prayers. So it's fine to say it, but you have to take action. I mean, if that's followed with, we've got a, third-party investigation that's just been launched, or that person has been suspended or fired, or, taken out back and beaten within an inch of their life or whatever, that's, so you can't just say it. There has to be action. There has to be, it comes back to authenticity. There has to be substance behind the words.
Sure. Are emergency diversity hires helping women, or are these just hires just helping optics for companies? Are the women who get in these executive positions ultimately helping other women? Claudia, you want to take that?
Absolutely. Helen, this is a very good question. And I think that we can't, there's not one size fits all. I think some companies are not taking it seriously and other companies are taking it very serious. And then it's, optic related, but it's very much a part of cultures for other companies. And so I think it just sort of depends on what space you're sitting in, how seriously they're taking it. I think in terms of whether it helps women, whether it's a true part of the integrity and the fabric of the company, or whether it's just optics, the idea that you can see someone that looks like you, that's the same as you or closer to who you are, gives people hope and think that there's an opportunity. So I think that even if the company doesn't have the best intentions behind the hire or the position, I think that the fact that it's creating this opportunity is a good one. Usually when you create an opportunity or a position based on optics, it's very hard to reverse it. So I'm all in. So however we can get more women on board in positions of power, I'm for it, because eventually we will turn it into a positive, and that will inure to the benefit of everyone, not just women, but men and everyone as well who are part of the organization.
Anybody else have thoughts on that? No? Okay, we'll move on. What would you consider a sexist microaggression that you have experienced or have seen other women experience at the office or a trade show that men may be not aware of is sexist? How can we make men more aware of these sexist language and actions without shaming them into submission on these issues? Suzanne, you want to take that first?
I've told the story before. There's one industry leader that whenever I would disagree with him, he would say, "You're so cute. Why aren't you married?" It's like, okay, so like completely try to diminish me.
Wow.
And okay, fine. But when people ask me for recommendations for companies, I have never recommended that one, so I can be microaggressive too. It's one of these things where it when it happens to you. I don't know. I feel like how we all have this suppressed rage from all the stuff that we've been through. It just came up, and I'm at a loss for words. Claudia, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely. I can think of a million examples. you know, I'm in a meeting at a trade show, what have you. Men are talking about something. I come up, oh, Claudia, you look so fabulous. They go back to the business deal. No one's saying, well, we're having this problem. We're stuck on this. No one says immediately, Claudia, what are your thoughts on that? So I think that, you know, men are sort of primed and subconscious or conscious to sort of say, Suzanne, you're so cute. Why aren't you married? Or Claudia, you look great, as opposed to you know, engaging you in something more serious. Just the way things are assigned sometimes, like men are asked to put the agenda together and the women are asked, you know, what are we going to eat at the meeting? So like those types of sort of very stereotypical things are still floating around. And I like taking a page out of Suzanne's book, say, I'm not sure what we're going to eat. What do you think we should eat? Like, I just, so I just don't take on, or try not to take on, what I consider to be gender stereotypical roles, especially when I think the man is trying to marginalize me in some way.
I want to share just one little bitty thing, which I thought, and I've carried this for quite some time.
Please share away.
And it was kind of, maybe I was taking it wrong. I don't know. I'm from the Midwest, originally from Oklahoma. That's where our store is. And whenever I was running for a national office for a national organization, I did have a supply side person who said, once I won, which I'm very, very blessed to do, and I worked really hard to win this position, I had someone say, you know, even a little bitty girl from Oklahoma can be a president of a national organization. And I took that very, okay, so from Oklahoma, it hurt my feelings, because I thought, you know what, I worked to get that position. I got on the phones and I called all the voting members for this organization to be able to be a part of that, and for that to become to me. And I have a lot of respect for that man, and still do, except for that, you know. And it's like I was taken back, totally taken back by that.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I knew you when you were president, and you were always more than a little itty bitty girl, and you were powerful during a very powerful time. And I think you showed him for sure.
I hope so.
I think so.
So I don't have an experience to share, but I don't know if you've been watching in the chat, but there was a lot of talk about, talking about, hugging in the industry, hugging at trade shows, and talking about men kissing women on the cheek as their default. So I'd love to hear what your take on that.
Don't kiss me.
Oh,
It's fine. I do have some European customers where it's just
European.
That's culture.
Yeah. So I think with the Europeans, I'm okay with it.
And for me, it's about how long I've known you, and do we really have that type of relationship? So I don't have a hard and fast rule about it, but if we're just meeting for the first time and you're not European, and even if you are European, I still might not be open to a kiss.
No. Yeah, there has to be like, maybe I've known you for maybe a year or so.
Or something, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you have to have some kind of rule there before.
Well, there's professionalism, right? That we're coming we're a professional industry, we're doing professional things, we're engaged in a professional way. And I just think that these little signs of intimacy are not professional in my mind.
Right, exactly. Agreed.
Speaking about professional, this is something that came in from Diego. Do the panelists think it's appropriate to drink at professional events? Why is alcohol served in the first place? What is a good rule of thumb to handling your alcohol at a professional space? Excellent question. Who wants to take that one?
Yeah,
I think I've had to drink with almost everybody here.
Now that's a hard one.
All right.
That's a hard one, because a lot of people gather at the bar, right? You get some really good meetings there, and you get to be around. So I guess it's just one of those things that you just have to be, you just have to know where your limits are.
Yeah, I think we all have learned over time, probably the hard way, to try to be smart about how we operate when we're out in the world, whether it's in a professional setting or walking down the streets of Chicago. People are like, you haven't been shot yet? It's because I keep my eyes open, right? So, it's just about knowing how to operate in the world safely, I think. But that's a learned skill.
It is.
Absolutely.
I've definitely experienced that learned skill. My first trade shows at 23 are very different at my age now.
Yeah,
Same.
well, I think it goes back to what Claudia said about professionalism. Even if you had a drink or two, you should be able to navigate that as an adult and behave professionally. And I've seen actually very recently at an industry event, somebody who was an employee of the sponsor of the event was terminated because of the way that person handled themselves, like very inappropriately, that, you know, I certainly noticed and a lot of other people did. And I'm just thinking, like, what were you thinking? Like, why would you think that would be okay? So I think, you know, people just have to grow up and learn how to conduct themselves. And yeah, at 23, maybe you're more inclined to make that mistake, but you know, those are things you need to learn.
Yeah,
It
they
is
won't do
something
that again.
Oh, yeah. But it is
Yeah.
also, I mean, what you also want to take into effect is that now with social media, like when I was 23, there was no social media.
Right.
There's pictures of evidence.
Thank
of it
goodness.
as well. Yeah. So that goes on further. And again, bringing this back to this being a woman, you know, a woman thing, is women are objectified more in these situations than not. I think we all agree with that. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And that's something where, you know, people do take that into account too. So
Yeah, and
excellent question, Diego.
I do think that it's worth more discussion because I feel like I don't want to be objectified and I also don't want to be unsafe. So I just think that knowing your tolerance and, you know, do you have one glass or two glasses, that really has to go into, are you going to be able to avoid harassment? Are you going to be able to be safe? Like what, you know, there's a lot of factors that go in. And I think it's a conversation for everyone, not just women, but that safety factor is something that I think about when I talk to my daughters about, you know, when you're overindulging.
And one thing we haven't touched on is the fact that sometimes when you are in a group at a location, sometimes it's more like, can I buy you a drink? Oh, well, can I buy you another drink? You know, so it's almost you have to find that bottom line that, okay, I've only had 2 drinks and I don't need any more. And well, I'm going to buy it. Okay, well, give me the money instead of giving me the drink. You know?
I love
your
that, Debra. I love that, Debra.
I think we all need to have learned when it's time to go home, for one thing. But could we talk a little bit more about objectification that Claudia brought up? You know, because that's a huge, huge issue. I mean, we are objectified from a very early age. I mean, little princess diapers, you know, it's ridiculous. One of the many things I love about being older is the street harassment stops, you know, like mid-50s-ish, which was like best day of my life when I realized nobody was catcalling me. But the truth is that it's so embedded in our culture to objectify women. It's in advertising. It's, you know, oh, boys being boys, locker room talk. You know, it's like looking at women as objects. That's what objectification means. And we're seeing, you know, the sort of treating women as objects more and more culturally, sort of a return to, you know, our ancient history as objectifying women as a part of the population that needs laws around, you know, what their behavior is and the removing of autonomy. And so while objectification can be really annoying, it's actually really toxic. And so awareness of the impact of objectification and not hooking into it when we're treated like a Tweety Bird walking pork chop going down the street, I think is really important in terms of our holding on to and maintaining and protecting our autonomy as human beings. Women are human beings, autonomous human beings with agency. And we will protect that.
Yes, I agree.
That's a
And
soundbite
teach it
of
to our children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely, Debra. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a little heavy. Thank you, Suzanne. So let's switch gears a little bit. So in your entire career, what has been your biggest lesson learned on all issues related to sexism and sexual harassment? Debra, you want to take that first?
I'll start. Yeah, you know, I started out saying I think most people are good. I really do. They write songs about it and everything else. I think most people do not have an agenda whenever they first come up to you and meet you. I think that there are perpetrators that are out there that do that. But all in all, I think it's all about respect, and respect for yourself first, and what boundaries that you want to put out. But where you want to be. I mean, because I think that there are a lot of strong people in this world that want to give you their opinion about any given topic by any means. And you just have to know that you never, ever underestimate anyone's intentions. And you spread out those boundaries and you say, this is kind of where I'm going to be at. And I think that your body language will definitely give that kind of signal, definitely.
Anybody else want to take that on?
What I would say, Heather, is honestly, I love being a woman. If given a choice, I wouldn't come in any other shape or form. But I am very intentional when I'm at work and trying to perform my job, perform as a mother, being a neighbor, what have you. And it's all about, I give respect and I expect respect as well. And so I think that when I notice that someone's not being respectful, and I think it's because of my gender, then I make some decisions about, is there a way that I can not be around that person? Or is there a kind word that I can sort of impart that's more generous than they might deserve, but that could sort of give them a reminder that this is unacceptable. So I just think that I take those types of things depending on the scenario that I'm confronted with. And sometimes you do feel powerless as a woman, like there's just nothing. Sometimes there's just times when you're going to not be able to have the response. And I know Suzanne's thinking, I always can give the response, but sometimes when you're in the board meetings and someone says something outrageous, I do find myself biting my tongue, but I also feel like at my age as well, that I can go back and say to some of my colleagues, well, I was really surprised by that comment. Are we going to address it? Or, how did you feel about it? So I do think that is sort of, I think we talked about it today, it's like these small steps and just sort of building a momentum that we're human beings and we want respect.
Couldn't agree more. And you have a daughter too, so I'm sure you teach her all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also just consciously owning our power is really important. And having people we hang out with, friends, allies, clients, colleagues, family, who support that and who treat us with respect. Don't hang out with people who don't treat you with respect. Don't do business with people who don't treat you with respect. Don't keep, I've fired clients who were disrespectful. And, just don't allow that energy in your life. Set those boundaries. I mean, most of the people who have dealt with me know about my punk rock history. And so obviously I've, got that I can bring to bear when I need to. And I don't have Debra's living in the South, so her manners are way better than, the Chicago girl. But there are ways to do it. There are definitely ways to do it, but just don't ever give up your power.
I agree completely. And thank you. Yes, that's such good advice. Thank you. I'm going to get back to the objectification a little bit. This is a little bit of a marketing question that came from Sean. How does the objectification of women play out in marketing? How might companies review that? Anyone want to take that?
I had this epiphany one time. I was Christmas shopping and I can't remember where I was. It might've been Target. And the girls' aisle was pink and the boys' aisle was blue. And it actually made me cry. It actually made me cry. The thought that my daughter would be marginalized with the fluffy little toys, and the science toys were in the blue aisle. I have twins, male, female twins, right? So I've been, for the last 36 years, very much aware of the difference in marketing. But I think also those days are over. Again, to come back to the younger generations, they're not having it. They're not having it. And you can't do the stereotypes anymore. And you can't do the laughing prejudice about people because they're gay or trans or women, or, you know, you just, the day of the straight white male running everything and having all the power they're just over. Sorry, get over it. You know, I mean, the great thing about smashing the patriarchy, it means that more diverse ideas are brought to the table. If you have the same people with the same kind of experience in the world, the same perspective in the world, there's not going to be the kind of creativity that you can bring to a business when you have people with a lot of different backgrounds and perspectives who've dealt with a lot of different kinds of things in their lives, or maybe have cultural differences, you know? So the more diversity, the better we all do. You know, the fact that it's ethically correct aside, or, you know, but it's just better for business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've seen your twins grow up, and I couldn't agree more that you've definitely raised them to be whatever they want to be. And I have twins as well. And sometimes my boy sometimes likes to play with dolls. It's okay. And sometimes he says his favorite color is pink, and sometimes she says her favorite color is blue. But sometimes she says her favorite color is pink, and he says his favorite color is blue. Whatever they want is fine.
And she shouldn't get paid less than him if she decides.
And it is true, Amy. Yes, girls' clothes are always more expensive than boys. Absolutely.
They don't have pockets.
I know. Now
Is that true?
Yes.
But, yes.
Pockets
No,
in women's clothing. There are no pockets in women's clothing, and it like women
It's skirting.
have these tiny micro. You know, you can fit a lipstick. That's it.
Right.
I
Not
think
even your
this is
cell
a
phone,
good-
right, Suzanne?
I know exactly.
You're being forced to carry a purse.
This is a good question that got brought up that I think is a little bit different than anything else. But do you think ageism is more of an issue than sexism for women over the age of 50? Or does ageism compound sexism at 50 plus? Can you provide some examples of what you're seeing, hearing, and when it comes down to women experiencing both ageism and sexism in the industry? So since age has come up a little bit, I thought it was an excellent question.
Yeah, I'd love to start with that if I could. You know, I've experienced sexism and ageism like as a really different, I mean, I haven't experienced ageism. The best part for me, one of the best things for me about getting older is that the sexism diminishes somewhat. You know, part of that I think is being really well established in the industry and having, you know, the best of the best as my clients. But I think if you work for a company and they're trying to bring in young people they don't have to pay as well, then ageism may come into it. But in terms of the sexual harassment part of sexism, I don't think you experience both at the same time, which is, you know, a blessing of sorts.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, as I get older, maybe I don't notice the sexism as much because I don't know. I maybe it's because I work 24/7. Maybe that could have a little bit to do with it. But being I just feel like maybe I have a little bit more. I'm more saged into how I feel about different things. And but I really think that I don't know what I really think. I guess I think that as we mature and as we get older, we should be respected more. I mean, I respect my elders. That's the way I was taught. And I wouldn't want to try to impose anything on anyone who was younger. I wouldn't do that. Now I know there are people out there that do, not maybe in our industry, but still saying all that is I think that maturity has its pluses and its little, you know, first place trophies, because we worked really hard to get where we are, and we establish our footing and our base in the industry that we are, and we need to find ownership in that. And so that's kind of where I look at that paradigm.
David or Claudia, any thoughts on that?
So I've been thinking about this. What I notice in terms of, obviously, and I think I don't necessarily that I can divide the sexism from the ageism in the context in which I sort of exist. What I notice is that women retire, so they just sort of get to a certain age and retire, and the men linger. And they're, no matter, normally there's a value that's been brought to the table, but there's always some position that allows them to have 10 extra years of income that I don't know is really offered or an opportunity for women. And so as I start thinking about my retirement age, I've been sort of looking to see, like, what are these opportunities and how do you latch on to them? And like, when I think about women and the pay differentials and things like that we've touched on today, I'm like, how do I make sure that I'm creating wealth, not only for my individual family, but creating a path for women who come behind me? So that is just one of the things that I see as a little bit of ageism, that women are sort of like, okay, thank you. And men get to keep doing whatever they are, even if they get lost in the halls.
David, what are your thoughts on this?
I stopped counting about 20 years ago, so I try to not really be conscious about it. And fortunately, spending a lot of time in the food and beverage space, the crowd is much younger than my peers. So, I was a little insulted when someone who I'm close with and an advisor to called me his cool uncle, which it was sort of like a double-edged sword. I wasn't sure quite how to take that, but there was actually some comments in the chat about women being taken more seriously after 40. And I'm curious what you guys think about that, and whether that's, different for men and for women, whether it's just a matter, I think, Debra, as you were saying, when you get to a certain point when you're starting your career, you sort of don't know what you don't know. But as you get to a certain point and you actually accumulate, experience, and, the quote about experiences is what you get right after you need it. You've done that enough times and you sort of have your footing and your confidence. I don't know if that's different for men or for women, but certainly as I've gotten further on into my career, things that used to throw me or just, don't bother me anymore.
Agree. I've definitely experienced that. It's funny because I got married in my 40s, like late. So it was, I never knew if it was because I got married or because I got older, where people started respecting me more, and like a lot of the comments stopped coming. So I don't know which it was, but anyway, I'm thankful for it. And if no one else has anything, I think this, it was a fast hour, guys. Lots of great talk, lots of emotions, lots of momentum and respect and vulnerability and education that has happened today. Those were a lot of our words that we used getting into it. So I think we've accomplished what we want to accomplish. And I just got a couple of comments for everybody. So thank you everyone for attending Elephant in the Room Sexism panel discussion for the legal, finance, and marketing and retail sectors of our industry. Be sure to fill out the survey on our panel today for a chance to win a $25 Amazon gift card. You can find the link in the survey in our event platform for our session. And then please join us next Thursday at 1 to 2 Eastern Time as we examine the topic of sexism in the supplement, ingredient, and pet sectors of the natural products industry. That's going to be a great one too. So thank you all for joining us. And guys, great job and great conversation. We can continue this all day, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Amy.
Amy.
Great job.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you,
Happy
Amy.
Easter.